Sega is a company known for a lot of things, but one of its most prominent aspects has got to be its wide catalog of characters and their respective IPs. Hell, I'd argue that its selection of recognizable faces is up there with the likes of Nintendo, Capcom, Square, Inti Creates? No, screw me, I tried. A lot of people claim that Sega is a company that neglects those iconic IPs, only stroking its most popular franchises like Sonic and Yakuza. But while that used to be the case, I don't know if it's fair to say that anymore. In recent years, we've gotten the return of Streets of Rage, Panzer Dragoon, Wonder Boy, Alex Kidd, House of the Dead, and Super Monkey Ball. Hell to the yeah! And sure, many of those were outsourced to other companies, but there was still a desire to see these names make a return from the mother company. They had to give the okay after all, and one way or another, we've been getting all these new installments in the series we love. The ends may justify the means for once. I've been pleasantly surprised at how many classic Sega series have been making a return, so can we really say that Sega just supports its bigger names at this point? I don't know if you're looking hard enough if you're still saying things like that. Give the company some time and your favorite franchise will probably be up to bat sooner than you think. As a matter of fact, recently, well, at the time of writing this video, but given how slow I am with video output, this is no doubt old news, Sega has stated that they want to put even more focus on bringing back beloved IPs, and that's exciting news to be sure. So exciting that it's gotten me to think about all the franchises I personally love that haven't made the return yet, which is exactly what we'll be talking about today. Whether it be a sequel, remake, or just an enhanced port of some kind, anything goes as it's sort of a case-by-case basis. I'll be sure to go in detail every time a name pops up. No particular order for the games and series I'll be talking about, let alone which ones I want more than others, so let's just relax and talk about a fair chunk of the company's legacy and what big names I want to see all over again. I'm no longer asking, these are the Sega revivals we absolutely need. Starting with the Fantasy Zone. No, not that one. There we go. While Sega used to be a strong competitor in the console market, they were no doubt one of the hardest hitters when it came to the arcade as well. As such, lots of classic coin-sucking titles made the list, and for the first of many featured in this video, we have Space Harrier. On-the-rail shooters are a cool type of game, and Space Harrier is an alright one all things considered. It's hectic, fast-paced, and a breeze to go through. Not in terms of difficulty or anything, oh no. I more so mean its length. I beat the arcade original in around 30 minutes or so, and that was with a decent amount of error on my end, with the Sega Genesis sequel not being much longer. The original game's a ton of fun, has cool music and some neat ideas, but given the length and simple gameplay, along with the lack of any real replay value aside from aiming for a higher score, it's primed for an expansion of some kind to make for a more beefy title. New enemy types, additional creatures to ride on, an actual health bar so I don't lose a life every freaking time I make a mistake while also halting the game's momentum to a screeching halt at an annoying degree. Sorry, got a little heated there. Let's go ahead and get rid of lives while we're at it too. They're a dated concept, and for those worrying that it'd make the game too easy, why not crank up the challenge since players could lose as much as they needed? This is why lives gotta go. And of course, the game should have plenty of branching paths. Maybe stretch out the game's length a little more as well, somewhere around the hour range, but make it so that there are a plethora of ways to reach the final boss based on fulfilling requirements like interacting with stages in specific manners or killing secret enemies. Get creative. Stuff like this adds a lot of substance to other games of the same vein, like Sega's very own House of the Dead series. On top of being a lot of fun, I'm incentivized to come back because of how much additional content there is for me to discover. Space Harrier would really benefit from that kind of design approach as well, methinks. In fact, I believe that with competent visuals and a bigger soundtrack on top of extra bells and whistles to the gameplay experience, Space Harrier could make its grand return with an even better game than any of its past entries, being seen by many as an energetic title that encouraged replaying it over and over. It'd be addicting, creative, and a whole lot of fun. So let me back into the Fantasy Zone, gosh darn it! Out of all the 90s beat 'em up, Streets of Rage was easily my favorite. The style, music, characters, and that gameplay kept pulling me back over and over. So I was obviously over the moon when Streets of Rage 4 released. I was even more excited when I got to play the game. And it was good! What a concept! So good that I need more. Even with the DLC expansion, I just need more. Except this time, I'm thinking we should go for a different series. Maybe, say, another popular beat 'em up trilogy from the Sega Genesis? Golden Axe is a trilogy of games that I think are just okay. I find them very underwhelming and somewhat generic, even when playing with a friend. Every time I play these games, I ask myself why I'm not just playing the Streets trilogy. Apparently, the arcade-exclusive Revenge of Death Adder is pretty good, but it's never been re-released, so I wouldn't know. I'd start with getting that done first and foremost. Maybe as some kind of Sega Ages port done by M2. It doesn't have to be in the Sega Ages lineup or whatever. Just make sure that M2 is the group that ports it. Once that's said and done with, I want the same team that gave us Streets of Rage 4 to take a crack at a potential Golden Axe 4, with a lot of the same features that made Streets 4 so great. A hand-drawn aesthetic, in-depth combat capabilities, and up to 4-player co-op. But on top of this, I'd love to see new takes on what made the original Golden Axe trilogy stand out, like an expanded magic system or even more beasts to ride on in stages. Some new characters and classes would be neat, branching paths are always nice, especially in shorter titles like this, and while I'm sure they'd want to introduce a new villain, I wouldn't be opposed to Death Adder making his grand return once again. Or is he Deathbringer? It's a bit confusing, but you know what I'm talking about. The big bad, this behemoth of an opposing force. He's one of the most badass villains in Sega's entire catalog. He can stay. This series has tried multiple times to be revived, to little success I realize, but the folks at Dotemu, Lizard Cube, and Guard Crush Games have already proven themselves before. This is the dream beat-em-up team. Let them have another go at a new Sega series, and Golden Axe is prime for the picking. Again, I was never too big on the trilogy before, but if I saw these names behind a new installment, suddenly I not only give a crap, but also money. Because if anyone can give me a good Golden Axe game, it's these guys. Heading back to the arcade, OutRun is one of Sega's most important titles that's a ton of fun. I played it for the first time earlier this year and it's great. Why did nobody tell me? Love the vibe of the game as it's not a racing game, but a driving game where you're trying to beat the clock while vibing to some catchy beats. Just the original arcade release has given me a ton of fun times, but the sequel on the original Xbox looks dope as hell. It's baffling how it hasn't been re-released for more modern consoles. Actually, this is a bit of a trend with the company, giving supposed banger sequels to games on earlier consoles exclusively on the Xbox and never bothering to make them available for more modern audiences, regardless of their predecessors doing just that. Sounds pretty hyper-specific, right? I agree. Why does it keep happening? And yes, I know that technically OutRun 2 is also on the PS2, but the Xbox version is the best one. I don't want to play an inferior release, damn it. I'd not only love for OutRun 2 to finally get a re-release on the likes of Steam and modern consoles in its most definitive form, but I love an OutRun 3 that takes every concept of the duology to the extreme. Even more routes to take, modes of play, and a free roaming mode of some kind where you can just drive to some bopping tunes without worrying about the timer. While I love the rush of beating the clock on every single possible road to the multiple finish lines, I'd equally love a more laid-back form of play where I can just feel the wind in my hair with a good-looking passenger in my seat. And in some online play where I could hit the road with some friends who own the game as well, and we'd have a great game that would not only honor the originals it's trying to succeed, but maybe even surpass them. It wouldn't be the most complicated game in the world, but it'd be one hell of a vibin' ride, no doubt. Then there's the other side of the arcade driving coin where instead of vibing, you just wanna go wild. Crazy Taxi is such a damn fun time. It's really cheap on Steam and easy to become obsessed with, as its simple gameplay of taking passengers to different locations never ceases to be fun or chaotic. You've got all these wild maneuvers to shave off time, the map is incredibly well designed, the feedback you get from everything going on sucks you in. This game is so good, and that's only talking about the original. The third game in the classic trilogy included the main maps from both its predecessors, as well as allowed you to play all three games cast in one, which would seem like the perfect entry, but remember that thing I said about Sega sequels to past titles being trapped on the original Xbox? Remember how hyper-specific it once seemed? Would you look at that? Here it is once again. Get this thing out of Xbox prison and throw it on Steam. Hell, throw all three games on Steam in some sort of trilogy collection pack thingy. Or, better yet, give us a Crazy Taxi Mania, following the guidelines set by Monkey Ball, but with more of an emphasis on progression and unlocking all the game's features. Start us off with the original cast and a complete visual overhaul of the original two maps in the first game, then have the maps and cast from the next two games be unlockable by playing the game and accumulating points to be redeemed at a shop. There we could buy the remaining characters from the other two casts, the additional maps, and if we were to continue in Banana Mania's footsteps, perhaps a few guest characters? Honestly, why stop there with the new content? Let's throw in one or two new maps, and of course, a bonkers hard mission mode that we'll all try for like 10 minutes before going back to the real fun. The arcade-styled taxi driving chaos. The original engine was great, giving so many elements, collision, and having the world react to your madness in a variety of ways, but technology has progressed so much since the last proper title in the series, and we can do so much more. We can make the map so much bigger. We can push the Crazy Taxi gameplay even further beyond. My only concern would be the music, since later releases of the first game had its iconic Offspring soundtrack replaced with incredibly generic tunes. Now, the dream would be having more Offspring music as well as the original songs they produced for past entries, but I won't get too unrealistic here. Give me something good and I'll be fine. I'd probably just end up modding music into the Steam version anyway. Last car game, I swear. Sega All-Stars Racing and All-Stars Racing Transformed are two of my favorite kart racers that I still come back to every now and then. Especially the latter, which was my favorite kart racer for a while, but I think I prefer Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at this point. While Team Sonic Racing was good, I enjoyed having multiple Sega franchises see fan service while racing on uniquely designed tracks, so I'd like for the Sega Kart Racing duology to become a trilogy. Where do you go from Transformed? My idea would be to put an emphasis on races that span one giant course like Mount Wario and Big Blue from the aforementioned Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. One big track that's split into 3 sections in order to take the dynamic track scene and transform to an even further level. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing World Tour! Working title, don't worry. Bring back the mission mode, but make it good for once. Give us actual new voice lines and the best roster yet. The first game's roster was good, but the second game had a lot of guest characters that felt out of place and secondary characters from already represented series in the roster. As much as I love my girl Pudding, that's a spot that could have gone to another Sega franchise not already here, so my game would have a bit more variety. Bring an OutRun guy and his girlfriend, Axel from Streets of Rage, Rystar to promote him from Flagman duty, and maybe even some love to the games more popular in Japan like Sakura Wars and Phantasy Star. In fact, why limit ourselves to just racers? Why limit this spot to just Sega All-Stars Racing at all? Give me a sec. There we go. Remember that this crossover series didn't just start as a kart racer, but as a showcase for a bad console peripheral, a tennis game that's surprisingly good, then a kart racer. After a third one to push that set of games even further, I'd want to mess around with some other types of games. Different sports titles would be fine, I suppose, and even a minigame collection would be cute, but fellas, I'm sure we're all looking for the same thing here. Sega All-Stars future entry needs to be a fighting game. Sega's answer to Smash, if you will. Not to say the game would be a platform fighter, even if I wouldn't be opposed to such a thing, but I've always pictured this as a traditional fighter. Maybe even a 3D one along the lines of Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers to spice things up. I'm not too picky in regards to this though, because just having any way to make these iconic Sega characters duke it out would be sick, so I'm open to a lot here. So much that this idea could be a video in and of itself. For now, the fact of the matter is, I'd want another Sega-centric crossover filled to the brim with fan service that encourages multiplayer fun. All of the ideas I brought up would be great to see, but if you had to pick one, I mean, come on now. Battle of the Ages, it just works too damn well. Sega's rhythm games are an interesting case, by which I mean that their quality and my interest in them is all over the place. Samba de Amigo honestly puts me to sleep, sorry about it. The Hatsune Miku games look fine, but Vocaloid music isn't really my thing anymore. Rhythm Thief is a great time, if not a bit bloated with the point-and-click gameplay that makes me wish I could just go back to the real good rhythm game portions. And then we have Space Channel 5. This is what I'm talking about right here. Straight to the point rhythm gameplay, with the only in-between being a ridiculous story I loved seeing develop. New ideas and scenarios are constantly being thrown at you, and the game refuses to let up on providing excellent music. Sometimes I mess up because I'm banging my head too hard at how catchy the songs are, especially in the second game that improves on everything. These two games are excellent, and I absolutely need more. And no, the VR game doesn't count. That thing was like 30 minutes, and after watching a playthrough, lacks a lot of the charm and identity of the original two. Gameplay's too simple to compensate for the whole VR thing, and on top of this, set pieces weren't allowed to be as wacky as before. Where's the Meteor Soaring action, the battle of the bands, a guitar duel with my girl Pudding? It was a cute little thing for VR fans, I guess, but a proper sequel has got to be in the cards somewhere. Make the campaign just a bit longer than part 2, have a second more difficult campaign more in line with the first game where you go through different scenarios in the main playthrough, add in another unnecessary celebrity cameo, and give that soundtrack the big band treatment like the originals. I want a true Space Channel 5 Part 3, and I want it to be a great time that encourages me to constantly replay it just like its predecessors. And I'm tired of having these two soundtracks on repeat. Give me more music! Please. While I admittedly haven't dabbled all that much into the genre, I've yet to be too disappointed with tactical RPGs. Heck, you all know how much I love Fire Emblem, that's in my Twitter top 4. I didn't start there though, as my first experience with this type of game was Shining Force on the Sega Genesis. I first played it when I was really young, a time where I had little to no patience when it came to the genre. Y'all think I hate turn-based games now? Well, I don't, but I did then, so it's a miracle that when I first played something like Shining Force, my thoughts were along the lines of, Ayo? That was kind of tight. The Shining Force duology on Sega's 16-bit Champion were some of the system's best titles, and even though the series has evolved into whatever the hell it is now with its 30 billion sequels and spin-offs, I still hold these two titles in high regard. Apparently the third game is just as good if not better than these two, but it's on the Saturn, so I and many others haven't been able to play it. The Sega Saturn has always been a console shrouded in a ton of mystery over my gaming career. Because of how notoriously difficult it is to emulate the games in its library, it's only seen a small selection of re-releases, and as such, I haven't played all but a handful of titles that stem from it. This is one of them, and one I also want to play the most out of this expansive and accessible library. Even for those who have played it, the game is split into 3 parts for whatever reason, with the latter 2 never getting an official localization. Does Sega want us to play these games or not? Well, either way, I don't care anymore. I want them, so give them. I think the Shining Force trilogy, or I guess pentalogy, would benefit greatly from a collection featuring official translations for the entirety of Shining Force 3 for the first time, upscaled at pixel art to proper HD for a clean look on modern display, game, and we're golden. And after that, if it does well, maybe the Shining series could give the strategy RPG another shot with a new game. Not necessarily a sequel to this trilogy, but its own standalone title with a new cast, world, and villain would be cool. The only connecting thread it'd have to the original Shining Force games would be due to its similar gameplay. I'd of course prefer it if it went for a style not unlike the more linear Fire Emblem games, going chapter to chapter with no world map in between so that we maintain the strategy aspect of these games due to limited resources and the inability to grind. But I won't be too picky. Even though the series started as a first-person dungeon crawler, it gained its renown and popularity from the get-go due to the strategy titles, so bringing the series back to its roots in a lot of people's eyes would undoubtedly generate interest, and I'd like to see it happen. Speaking of a Sega RPG series I want to see return to its roots, Phantasy Star, a series I've been falling in love with as of recent. Classic RPGs that bring both fantasy and sci-fi elements together, working a lot better than I or many others could have ever predicted. It's proven itself to be a great series. It's also a finished series, as the original quadrilogy told a cohesive story with a proper beginning, middle, and end. Nowadays, the franchise lives on through its popular MMO titles, either through official servers or private ones that fans have been keeping alive thanks to their undying affection for the various titles. All well and good to be sure, but like with Shining Force, I think it's high time for classic Phantasy Star to make its grand return. I want the series to give us more in the way of traditional single-player RPGs, and how I'd go about it would be through a 3-point plan. Step 1, have M2 re-release the rest of the classic quadrilogy either through the Sega Ages line, or in whatever fashion like how they did with the original. The Sega Ages port of Phantasy Star was excellent, and got me into the series as a whole with many quality of life improvements to cut down on the tedium without altering too much of the core gameplay and intended experience. Do the same with the rest of the series, and if you're feeling really generous, put them all in a collection like before with the Phantasy Star Complete Collection released on the PS2, only this time upscaled to proper HD. My second step then would be to try and attract newcomers by giving the 4 games full-on remakes. Think the Mana Trilogy by Square Enix. There, the 3 main games were all released in the collection alongside proper 3D remakes, and I'd like Phantasy Star to be given similar treatment. This would be a great way to attract the newcomers who aren't keen on the idea of playing the older games in their older format, M2 release or not. We could update the cutscenes, give more character interaction in the first game especially, add some voice acting, update the battle system to give it more mechanics and depth. We'd be modernizing this story for a new audience without completely changing the experience and tale these games told. It'd be great. As for my third step, so long as we honor the original series story and leave that alone, I'd love for another story to be told under the Phantasy Star moniker. Sega has already done a lot with this storytelling genre hybrid, but there's still so much more that could be done. The sky's the limit in terms of what kind of scale we could work with when taking modern hardware into consideration, and again, so long as we make absolutely sure that this new story is completely separate from the original quadrilogy, only having the Phantasy Star title for branding and to allow for the fantasy sci-fi hybrid to continue, I think we'd have a potential new all-star series for Sega to milk. So yeah, even though the series is kind of in a comfortable spot right now, this revival is more of a rejuvenation, a means to inject new life into a series that would greatly benefit from such. It's a bit of a stretch, but it's also my list, and the ideas would not stop flowing when it came to what I want Sega to do with Phantasy Star. And I know at least one of these ideas got you excited, right? Don't lie now, come on. Real quick, just want to highlight games I haven't played but want to through the form of a re-release of some kind. Not gonna spend much time on these since, well, I haven't played them, but here goes. This game looks awesome and has a funky soundtrack, but it's on the Saturn, so I can't play it. Re-released this with brushed up visuals, along with the option to maintain the original aesthetic like Knight's re-release did, and we're golden. This is a weird Sega crossover fighter, once again, released on the Saturn, so I can't play it. Looks wacky and a lot of fun, so let me give it a try. Just the port would be nice. This is one important arcade title for the company that I'm surprised hasn't gotten the Sega Ages treatment at this point. Get M2 on this thing. I feel like this title is too important to the company to not be available on modern platforms. Is this game bad or something? I want to find out. An incredibly niche meta Sega RPG where your goal is to save the company in its console market battle. It's Japan exclusive but looks too damn funny to be region locked forever. Alex Kidd works a retail job in this game. Come on dude, give us this one already. I mean, duh. You knew I was gonna bring it up at some point. I knew I was gonna bring it up at some point. We all knew it was coming. Everyone I've ever interacted with that has played this game sings its praises to high end, and while I'm on the cusp of just emulating it already, let me give you my money, Sega. Everyone wants this. The fans want it. The curious gamers want it. The developers behind the freaking game want it, for crying out loud. It's time. Make it happen, and let it have whatever improvements the GameCube version brought along with it. And make it HD. And widescreen. And without random encounters? No? Okay. And last, but certainly not least, we have my most wanted Sega revival. Remember how I said that there's no particular order for which Sega IPs I want revived, let alone wanting some more than others? Well, I lied. I want this one the most. And can you blame me? Can you really fault me for wanting the glorious return of the GGs? I need Jet Set Radio to come back, and I need it to be in a big way. The original game has thankfully been made incredibly accessible thanks to its Steam HD remaster, that of which is constantly going on sale by the way, but its sequel is stuck on the console it released on, and you won't believe which one it is. Out of all of Sega's games trapped in Xbox prison, this one deserves a bail the most. Get this thing on Steam and modern consoles, make it have proper widescreen like the first game's re-release, and please let us control the camera like you did with the original game's re-release. Then, once both games are finally available for convenient purchase, let's really start working towards a third Jet Set Radio game. Give it cleaned up controls from Future with proper camera options, and multiple modes so that both types of Jet Set Radio gameplay enthusiasts can be happy. Having one style of gameplay that replicates the more arcade approach the original did, and another style making the game structured in the open world format seen in Future. You'd have the same map either way, but how you go about it would be based on whichever preference you chose. Matter of fact, why stop at one map? On top of new locations in this hypothetical sequel, it'd be fantastic if it went the Crazy Taxi 3 route and had all the locations from the original two games here as well to beef up the content and get players coming back to this game for a long time. There's a lot we could do here, like customizable graffiti tags, online multiplayer, minigames like racing or tagging competitions, toggles for the enemies to make them more lenient if they're overwhelming the player, or even crazier if you're a masochist. Can you see why this is my most wanted revival? On top of me just wanting more from the series, there's a lot that could be done here, and I strongly believe many fans and potential newcomers will be down for it all. Hopefully they'd be down for everything I mentioned in this video, but at the very least, I think we'd all be down for this one. If anything, it'd be for that bumpin' soundtrack. Hideki Naganuma and other independent composers came together to make the first two games OSTs the stuff of legends. And if we got another one like that, whoo boy, make it happen. What are some Sega franchises you'd like to see make a return? Meet me in the comments and let me know. I'd love to hear you all's thoughts. And on your way down to the comments, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, pretty please. Whether you choose to disclose your ideas and support the channel or not, so long as you stay hydrated, I'm sure I'll see you all in whatever we do next.